Hello, everybody. Welcome to Behind Their Success podcast. I'm Peyton Squires, the host, and today we have a very special episode for you today. It is episode number 100. So over the past 100 conversations, we've had a lot of different entrepreneurs, founders, risk takers, game changers on the show that have done a lot of cool, huge, big things. And, along the ways, I've been inspired, I've been challenged, I've been surprised and humbled. And I've learned a few things that, I want to share with you guys that I've learned from these entrepreneurs as I've interviewed, 100 plus of them now. And in my top 6 lessons that I've learned from them to recap kind of what all we've talked about and to share some practical steps, right? So let's kind of pull back in my top 6 lessons that we've learned on Behind Their Success podcast through the first 100 episodes. Number 1, think big, think bigger than you think is possible. So this was probably one of my biggest struggles as early in my entrepreneurial career, coming from a small town background, not necessarily know any millionaires growing up. I had a very limited idea of what I was capable of. And this is what this lesson is really teaching me and teaching all of us, is that you don't know enough about yourself to know what you are truly capable of. Yes, you might know enough about your current version of yourself, and I would challenge you, you probably don't even know that. But the cool thing about living life forward is that as you garner new skills, as you bring in new information, as you develop yourself, you will become more and more capable. In your current state, you can't even comprehend that, right? Or you can't even rationalize that of, man, I may be able to get so good that I could make $100 million or whatever that, goal or number is. But many of us really shrink our goals, back down based on where we are currently and what we think is possible in our current state. Not realizing that, of course, if you change your state, you continue to grow. You keep listening to great entrepreneurs, taking in great information and working on yourself, most importantly, along with your business. You really don't know how far this game can go and how big you can grow stuff. My number 1 lesson taken away so far through this journey interviewing all these entrepreneurs is you need to think bigger. If you have big goals, you need to make them even bigger. And, when they say, oh, you shoot for this, shoot for the moon and you'll land among the stars or whatever, but it is true. Push your goals big. And then realize, if you get anywhere near them, you're going to be a lot better off than you ever dreamed of. Second biggest takeaway from these 100 episodes is you need to build systems, not just your own skill. The main difference between those who thrive and those who barely survive in business is often the presence of good systems and routines. I'm going to say that again. The difference between those who thrive in business and those who barely survive is the presence of good systems and routines. After talking with so many founders, it's clear that delegation, habits, and repeatable processes free up entrepreneurs' time to work on the business and not just in it. Most of my listeners here, I assume, or a lot of them, and I'm not just assume, we have data on a lot of you guys, but really all businesses are scalable. And they're all scalable to different degrees, but none of them are scalable without systems and processes. And, if you're still just starting out in business and haven't built a team yet, just realize that you're not going to go very far without system and processes. And of course, and this is what happened in my business and in my world, is that I started my business as a solo practitioner. I maybe had 1 or 2 employees for the longest time. And a lot of that was me just kind of showing up and doing the work. And, of course, I would train my couple employees and they would do some stuff for us, but we had no systems in place. We had no ability for the business to operate if Peyton wasn't there. And the issue with that is you can't grow it into something. Like if the business is literally capped on the amount of time that you can spend in it, well, it's literally capped on how much you want to work. And that isn't a business that I'm certainly interested in building, and certainly not one that you can build into multi-millions of dollars if it's literally just revolves around you. And guess what? No one will pay you for your business either, right? your asset, your business you're growing that you think, you want to sell someday or might be worth some money someday, if it all just revolves around you and like you doing the work, bringing in the clients, all those things, well, guess what? You don't have a business that's worth anything, because the second you step out of it, it all stops. And why would I, say theoretically come in and buy your business that you're going to step out of? And then there's no systems and processes there. What would I even be buying? So build systems, not just skill. Number 3 lesson that I have learned so far: purpose over profits. So many of my guests have pivoted away from comfortable careers or bigger paychecks to actually build something that is more aligned with their personal values. So the lessons taken out of that is when work is driven by a clear sense of purpose, not just money. And money's great, right? Money's a great tool to have. But when your work is driven by a clear sense of purpose and not just money, not only are you going to feel greater fulfillment, but the business tends to last and grow more sustainably. So understand that, right? So profits have to be there, right? To have any successful business that lasts for any amount of time, profits have to occur. Businesses don't exist if there isn't a profitable venture going on there. But more importantly, if you want to grow something that's big and does last around, it can't only be about the profits, right? There has to be a general purpose, a purpose of the business, a big problem that the business solves, right? And one that you can articulate. One that you can articulate and message to your potential customers of, this is the problem we solve. So, it's very important lesson takeaway there to have a purpose and a problem that your company is solving and not just focused on generating cash. Of course, you got to have both. The purpose is a little more important. Number 4, becoming a decision maker and not just a doer. This kind of goes back to a little earlier lesson about systems. A recurring learning curve for entrepreneurs is moving from the grinder to like the leader, right? Or you've probably heard me say in previous episodes, moving from the warrior to the king, right? So in the beginning, right, hopefully we're on these beginning stages, we're getting the business off the ground, we're doing all their operations. In my world, I was doing every single tax return. I was talking to every single client. I was licking every stamp and envelope. There literally was nobody doing anything but me. I was the full-blown operator, right? So the idea is to get the transition from being just that operator, because the problem is when you're just that operator, you're not really thinking past today. Or you can to a degree, but not really, right? Like you have all these problems right in front of you. You're solving all these very short-term, day-to-day problems that there's nobody with their head up looking further down the road of where the business is going and focusing on that and putting energy into that. So it's very important to make that transition from being just a doer, an operator, right, into a decision maker. The quicker an entrepreneur can get to getting paid from doing some work for somebody to getting paid to make decisions about their business, the more scalable and the bigger the business is going to be, and the better off the business is going to be.
Are you looking for a new tax experience? Looking for an advisor that actually brings you high-level ideas and proactively plans so you aren't overpaying your taxes? Or how about one that even just responds and communicates in a timely fashion? If any of that resonates with you, you probably just have a tax preparer and not a tax planner. And it is through the tax planning process where all the value is found. And when tax planning is done right, it has a positive return on investment. I'm Peyton Squires. I'm a CPA and owner of Squires Tax Planning. We work alongside entrepreneurs and high-income earners, helping them pay the least amount of income taxes, both legally and ethically. We have saved our clients hundreds of thousands of dollars through specific strategies, and we guarantee we can find multiple tax strategies that your current tax preparer hasn't told you about. If that interests you, head over to squirestaxplanning.com. There you can take our free assessment to see how likely it is that you are overpaying on your income taxes. From there, you can also book a free tax discovery call with our team to see what it would look like to have us working for you.
Number 5, this is a special one to me and one I absolutely love, is embrace continuous learning, and humility. Nearly every high-achieving entrepreneur that I've interviewed underlines the importance of staying humble and hungry to learn. The most successful ones are the ones who admit they don't know everything and proactively seek out mentors, feedback, and knowledge, especially when it's uncomfortable. So it's amazing, people outside of the entrepreneur space or even outside of the business owner space might see these successful entrepreneurs and think, man, they got it all figured out. They do all these big things. They have grown this large business. But I have yet to meet a truly successful entrepreneur, one that's done it for years and years and years, that isn't humble, that isn't one that is constantly taking in new information. And I put to you first why those two things, why continuous learning and humility go hand in hand, is because you can't put new information in a brain that isn't willing to accept it. You can't put new information in a brain, new piece of information in a brain, if they've already decided they have it figured out, right? That new information is never going to sink in there. And, we all have false assumptions. We all believe things that aren't true. And in many ways, we need experience or other people to tell us and teach us that, whatever beliefs we have in certain areas, they just aren't true, how things operate in the world. So it's so important. Every one of these entrepreneurs that I have on are people that read books, read podcasts, are part of mastermind groups, part of groups of other high-achieving entrepreneurs, part of groups of people that are, 10, 100 steps in front of them, because they want to get around the people doing the biggest, baddest things, because, just being in that proximity, you will be able to figure out how people do things and continue to grow and constantly be up-leveling your game. The number six lesson I have learned on Behind Their Success is saying yes to opportunities, but also learn how to say no as well, right? So part of the growth in the entrepreneur journey begins with saying yes, right? Begins with saying yes to quit your job, to take a chance, to get out of your comfort zone, right? Like, for me, it was quitting my corporate job in 2014 and opening up my business in my living room, right? And from there, it was, oh man, okay, I got to find how to get clients. I got to find out how to actually run a business, because, while I had a master's in business administration before I ran a business, very little clue what I was doing in the real world when actually operating a business. So it's important in the beginning to absolutely say yes, man. You got to say yes to opportunities. You got to say yes to all these different opportunities that allow you to begin planting seeds and putting energy in your business to actually grow it, right? There's things that I did in the first, call it 7 years of my business, that I was just out hustling. I was out networking. I was out doing all these things, just trying to drum up business and get my name out there. And many of those things, they don't work out, right? Like, or, go to an event and it's just like a total waste. And you're like, why did I even do that, right? Like, what productive came out of it? But the thing is, like, one of those meetings you show up to, you're going to find some amazing client, or you're going to find some amazing persons that becomes, an advocate of yours and sends business your way. But you can't find those people without just showing up to all the events, right? So it's constantly putting in the beginning, it's really constantly putting yourself out there and saying yes to a lot of stuff. I mean, the stuff I did, I would constantly just say yes to people to, like, yeah, sure, I'll do the work. And I had to go figure out how to do it. And it was just because I needed to bring in work. I wanted to, say yes to as much as possible and plant as many seeds as I could out in the world, right? But then at some point, it becomes a shift, and where it becomes more important to start saying no to more things that you say yes to, right? So I probably had that flip, 5-6 years ago, I'd say probably 5 years ago, to where I really needed to focus on start saying no to opportunities, right? The first, call it 6 years of my business, it was all about more, right? And trying to do more and spread my reach of my company as far as possible. Say after 2020, the shift became focus. It becomes, what problems do we solve? What clients do we help? What clients don't we help? and becoming very specific about the problems you solve. And the beauty of that is because if you solve very specific problems for very specific people, it can be very valuable. And you can build your own processes around solving these same problems for these people because you've done it 100 times before. You know what problems you're walking into, and you have the solution, and you know what are the solutions, and you can build a very repeatable process around that. But if you were like me in the beginning of my firm, who just did anything for anybody who said that would give me $1, at some point that's not scalable, right? You have to be able to break that and get into a model that has a very specific niche, as specific as you can get, but figuring out what problems you could solve and not just trying to solve every problem for every person. Because once again, causes a lot of issues, if you're a generalist and, in my industry, this is a huge problem because everybody's a generalist, right? They do taxes for every industry, or they do, taxes and payroll and bookkeeping and all these different things. And it turns out it's like you could be a 10 in one of those areas, but instead you're like a 5 in all of them, right? And it's not super helpful to the client because you don't have amazing solutions for them. And you're also spread thin doing a million different things, and you're not that good at any of them. So it becomes a point where in the beginning, it's a yes, yes, yes. And at some point, it triggers and switches to you need to start saying no and get more focused and more narrowed in what you do. So guys, that is the top 6 lessons I've learned in the first 100 episodes of Behind Their Success. I have a lot of people to thank for this podcast. A couple of people have come to mind. Marie is my podcast editor. She has been with me from the beginning. She has edited every single one of these podcasts. Another person is Tia. She is my marketing gal and, encouraged me to do this and put myself out there. And all these, both these ladies helped me design processes around this to where I didn't just start a podcast and release 3 episodes and never do another one again, like most podcasts. So, while I'm the host and get, some of the fanfare and stuff out of this, there's a lot of people behind the scenes making a lot of this stuff work that allows me to just kind of show up and do my thing. So I appreciate, all you guys, all you listeners, all you previous guests that took the time, especially early, some of my buddies that are really big business owners that just took an hour of their time to come on my show in the very beginning when, guess what, guys, no one was listening. Might have got like 4 downloads. I appreciate that, guys. None of this could have been done all by myself. It's because of you guys, the listeners and the guests and all the people behind the scenes that the show, still goes on. So guys, we have big plans. We're not stopping anytime soon. We're going to continue to put out great content, interviewing entrepreneurs around the country and getting their stories and practical advice for you guys to use, in your own lives, right? And further your own lives, further your own businesses, and just learn how to operate in the world a little better, right? So guys, thank you so much for, continuing to listen to the show. I would absolutely, if you haven't reviewed it or liked it or shared it, that would do a huge favor for me. If you could review the show on whatever you're listening to this on, Apple or Spotify or whatever that is, please leave us a review. We want to keep growing this and reaching as many entrepreneurs as we can and just having a good time. Like I said, I've said this many times in this show is that recording podcasts is one of the favorite things I do. Having these conversations with these entrepreneurs, me just learning stuff, the amazing people I meet that got on Shark Tank or sold a $50 million business, and there's stories behind that. To me, I absolutely love that. So guys, I appreciate you sticking with me. I appreciate you investing your time in me and this show. And we don't take that for granted. And we're going to continue to add value and keep showing up. We appreciate you guys. And thank you so much. I'm humbled to have got to 100 episodes. In the beginning, I didn't know if I'd make it this far or not, but here we are. And I tell you what, we're not stopping. So tune back in to the next show and we'll have some more great content with some awesome entrepreneurs telling their stories. Thank you so much for listening to the podcast. If you found it valuable, please rate, review, and share it. That is the best way to help us build this and reach more people, as we're trying to accomplish our goal of help creating more healthy, wealthy, and wise entrepreneurs. You can follow us on social media by searching for me, Peyton Squires, or going to paydensquires.com. On the website and social media, we're always sharing tips of personal growth, and there we can actually interact. I'm looking forward to it. Thanks, guys.